All right, guys, going to be putting the final touches here on week 4 of the NFL DFS main slate, touching on my favorite stacks, values, fades, and touching on my lineup process for this week. Let's go in and get into it. So I just want to talk about my favorite stacks for this week. We're going to start out with the quarterback position, just talking about how we can go about stacking that. And I do think we have another kind of unique stack we could potentially run out. So I think it's pretty easy to see the games that we want to be going out of our way to target, but we also have some sneaky games as well. An easy one to see is we want to be going out of our way to probably target the Miami Buffalo game. That game has a chance to be a shootout. The issue is that all their players in that game are going to be priced up to the point where I really don't see the point of chasing that game. And so we're not going to be doing that. Where I think we want to start would just be looking at the Las Vegas versus Chargers game. Now, Jimmy G, if he's active, is going to be a play that we're going out of our way to make. If he is inactive, then we could be looking at just paying up for Justin Herbert to, try to get a piece of this game. We got Justin Herbert there with Austin Eckler looking like he's doubtful. Josh Kelly very much has been disappointing, and that is certainly going to leave his ownership lower, but they just really haven't chose to use him. And so my biggest question is, and I know last week yards wise wasn't there. I would say that was actually probably the worst he's looked thus far. But a lot of that is due to, it seemed like Minnesota selling out to kind of stop the run. And that led to a lot of RPOs, which were just ended up being, their rushing game was just a quick 3-yard bubble, a quick 3-yard slant to Keenan Allen, and a little bit to Mike Williams as well. And that's the point I'm trying to get at, is that maybe with Mike Williams out, the offense shifts and tries to get the running back more involved. I think everyone is thinking that's most likely just going to be us doing this, right? Closing our eyes, clicking. Well, I think I clicked Mike Williams. We would go with Josh Palmer instead there. And then Jacoby Myers. Like, this game is super appealing to stack. And the good news about it is that look at our average salary remaining. Like, we have plenty of average salary remaining to continue to game stack this game. And if you want to roll with, let's say, Parham Jr., you could, who actually got surprisingly a lot of playing time in that game. Like, that's a route you could go. I'm not saying do that for this specifically. Obviously, go like a cheap defense, and you have a lot of salary left over to make a lot of things work with this. You could really onslaught it and go Kelly, go Josh Jacobs as well. But like the easy plays here, like we should be getting, let's say, around 20 points each with Keenan Allen and Devontae Adams there. Joshua Palmer and Jacoby Myers could easily be 15 points each if this game, is as high scoring as we want. I would say to save some salary, if it is going to be that high scoring, let's just go with Jimmy G. If he is out and we're trying to do a game stack, a GPP winning game stack, I don't mind Brian Hoyer as well. A lot of people are calling for Aiden O'Connell. I would say let's pump the brakes on the love for Aiden O'Connell. Like, he looked good this preseason, but he didn't look great. Like, he didn't look like, yes, we need to start him. He needs to be our second string. That was DTR. He was clearly the best. O'Connell still needs some work. Now, can he go out and do a respectable game? He could, but why risk that when you have, I don't want to say a proven veteran in Brian Hoyer, but somewhat of a proven veteran in him? Like, they know what they have in him more so. And at 4.9, you could do that. Obviously, we like it a little bit less. We like that game a little bit less if that occurs. And then from there, like, I really think that this game has a good chance to be a sneaky stacking opportunity. So we know that Bryce Young gets a good matchup there against Minnesota. We're going to need a little bit of rushing out of him if he's really going to do something like vault us into a good GPP winning type lineup. But let's see. We got Alexander Madison just in a great smash spot against the Panthers. So I think we could easily play him in that game. And if he's still going to be getting used in that passing game, that's highly appealing to me as well. Receiver wise in this game, obviously we have Justin Jefferson you could play. Now, the Panthers have been so bad against the run, teams have been choosing more or less to just run it, and that's why I think Alexander Madison, if you're doing a game stack build, makes the most sense. Adam Thielen is super cheap, and then so is DJ Chark. Like, these two players at this game, if they're going to be attacking via the pass like we think they're going to, this is a super cheap stack that could really break the slate. As long as that Vikings defense does look as bad, and as long as Bryce Young, he hasn't looked bad, as long as he maybe gets a little better, in his third start, this is a very appealing game to stack because it's sneaky, good matchup, very cheap, and then you could just slam in the rest of the stud. Like, maybe this is more of a secondary stack, and the primary stack is that Chargers-Raiders game. But guys, we also have this game, Denver versus Chicago. It's funny, the two of my favorite game stacks are going to be games in which teams are defeated. 0-3 matchup. But man, this is going to be appealing. Now, I don't see the point why you play Justin Fields at 6.6 when you can just get Russell Wilson, who's been better, has looked better, has a better offense, better offensive weapons at 5.8, and equally good as matchup. Let's just do that. Now, the problem that we have in this game is that we're looking at Javonte Williams as a potential play. Like, the issue with him is that he's not been getting as many snaps. P. Ryan could be some of that plays. But I think a very good sneaky play is actually looking at Khalil Herbert, who for some reason as the lead running back in Chicago is the basically the cheapest running back option that we can roll with. Like, this is a sneaky good play right here. I think if we're trying to game stack this game, we can go out of our way to play him. I'll touch on him a little bit more in the value section, but that is just a strange price tag. Then we could just kind of blindly click. I mean, I said this at the start of the season, like, what is going on here? Jerry Jeudy compared to Cortland Sutton, like, it's been proven that Sutton is kind of the go-to guy. He is the 1A right now, and Judy's the 1B, but that's the thing. It's 1A, 1B situation. There should not be that big of a discrepancy there. Let's just go with Cortland Sutton. The issue with Marvin Mims is he's looked good, but he's not getting that much playing time. Maybe it's a little bit more work in this game, you would hope. I'm actually curious. Let's take a peek at those snaps. Denver snaps for Mims. Yeah, they're pretty content on leaving him in about 25% of the snaps. Until that goes up, I don't really think we can trust him. And man, Adam Troutman, 88% of the snaps last week. Wow, that is crazy. But look at this, guys. Like, in a game that was a blowout, you're telling me Mims only played 25% of snaps. Like, whew. So I don't know if we can play him. I don't know if that's worth it. So to me, we're probably looking at Moore. We're probably looking at Jeudy. Darnell Mooney could be someone you're looking at. And then Adam Troutman, if we are going with Russell Wilson as our quarterback, I'd be fine with that. Like, we have some pretty good game stacks so far. And then another game stack that I think is kind of a sneaky good game. The only issue that I have with this game is that both running backs are going to be on the field a ton. Like, they could play 100% of the RB snaps in this game, and they could end up with maybe not the most efficient game in the box score, but ended up with like 15 points each, and they're so cheap you could make that work. Quarterback wise, I think Matthew Stafford's going to be the play. The Colts, they got the blueprint now on how to stop the Rams passing offense that have been so good. You need to get pressure on them. Colts could do that, but if they don't, they're going to get torn up defensively with Puka Nacua, potentially with Tutu Atwell. Like, I think we're just blindly clicking those guys. You got Michael Pittman Jr. in a good spot. He has just been targeted so heavily. The only worry that I have with him now is that he's starting to get priced up enough, especially with Anthony Richardson back. Is he going to get that passing volume? Tough to say for sure. I think I would rather go with Josh Downs, who has been playing a bunch of snaps, has been getting a bunch of targets. It's just another cheap way to get some access to that game if it becomes a little bit more of a high scoring game. But guys, I always get asked, like, in some of my, I always sometimes, that doesn't make sense. In some of the first like videos that I do, I get asked, hey, is this a GPP build or a core plays build? It's like every slate's different. I'm not trying to do something like directly. I would say obviously anytime we're doing stacks, we're chasing more GPPs, and this slate is giving us a lot of stacking opportunities. And it's just kind of strange how this slate is kind of breaking down that way, where we could easily run out a lot of good stack. This one I find interesting. You know, Sam Howell gets a matchup with Philly. You don't expect him to really do well. Philly looked much better defensively last week, I would say, but they could struggle. And maybe, you know, they have struggled in the past game, let's put it that way. And you could get a cheap stack with maybe Jahan Dotson. I don't know if we want to go Terry McLaurin. He does draw a tougher matchup most likely, so that should lead to easier targets for Jahan Dotson. And then you get a good matchup for Logan Thomas there as well. Just a cheap stack, maybe like a garbage time stack as well. You know, the classic Blake Bortles second half, game's over type of stack there. And those are all the stacks. Let's go ahead and get to the value. Guys, I would say week 4 is going to be the week in which we have a lot of sneaky good value plays. So let's start out with the quarterback position. Like, quarterback plays under 6K we could roll with. Brock Purdy, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford. Those are all going to be really good plays for under 6K. But we might have a couple of 5K options. Sam Howell is one I mentioned, gets a good matchup, I would say. And then I don't mind the idea of Brian Hoyer if we get news that Jimmy G is out. But Jimmy G is kind of the easy value play there. And then Bryce Young, a little bit of a good play there as well. I kind of already mentioned those players. There's a ton of decent value there at the quarterback position, to the point where it is definitely a slate in which it seems like we're not chasing the maybe 5 or so more points that these high-end guys could get, just because soft matchups, soft pricing for a lot of quarterbacks that have actually looked decent as well. Running back wise, we are getting, I would say, some fun value. Let's start out with the first one. I already teased this one. Khalil Herbert. What is going on here, guys? Right? Like, I don't, it's tough to wrap my head around it. People that are watching the games, maybe that's it. Maybe there's rookie bias going on with Roschon Johnson. I think he has looked good. Don't get me wrong, but people want him to be the thing more than he has looked like the thing, I would say, because they're just saying Khalil Herbert's not good. Kind of like when David Montgomery was there, everyone wanted Khalil Herbert to be the thing because, you know, shiny new toy, right? It's the same problem going on in Detroit with David Montgomery right now. Well, Khalil Herbert is now getting that same treatment with Roschon Johnson. He's the better pass catching back, maybe not the better pass blocking back, but he's the more dynamic playmaker as well. And we're getting him at a cheaper price tag. If this game stays close, and that's the biggest question we have, his snaps should be pretty high because their games haven't really stayed close. The one that was kind of close, playing 58% of snaps. So if this game does stay close, and obviously you want to be rushing the football against Denver, let's get Khalil Herbert 60% of the snaps. And he's working my way into maybe, I don't want to say he's a cash play, but like I'm definitely going to be overweight on him in GPPs because it's just the more and more I dive into it, the more and more it just makes sense. And so he's someone I think we need to be going out of our way to roster and be overweight on it. And when I say be overweight on him, guys, like 10%, he's currently coming in at 2% owned. Like that just feels like a mistake. And then we're going to get some other plays here. Jaylen Warren under 5K is what I'm looking at here, guys. Jaylen Warren is going to be one of those players that I think should be a good value for us as well. Gets a really good matchup against Houston. Now, I think this is the best chance Najee Harris is going to have to fall into the end zone. I do think that's going to occur, but really both of them are going to get around 12 touches or 12 opportunities in this one. Both of them could really have a good game. You know, wouldn't be shocking to see Warren put up 20 points against Houston. GPP winning upside there. Soft price tag. Really easy matchup. Going to have some work. 12 touches at a cheap price. They will take that. And then two other players I just want to mention, like Tajay Spears is definitely going to be interesting. Just given the matchup with Cincinnati, because chances are Cincinnati should be up in this one, but maybe it's a little bit more of a grind than people are expecting. That could happen. Don't get me wrong. This is more of a play of if they're playing from behind again, the Tennessee Titans, then Spears is going to get some work in the passing game. An annoying bet that I told people to make on prop betting was, I think it was 5.5 receiving yards for the over for Tajay Spears. And if you look at it, 4 receptions, 4 targets, like if we knew that, we would have hammered that bet. But he is getting targeted and he's getting used in the passing game. Has looked good when he's gotten the space. Out snapping Derrick Henry currently, like not a play you want to go ham with, but maybe toss him in 3% of your build. And then another one I just want to mention, just because I found the takes interesting. Let's just look at the Giants backfield. And I know this is for Monday, so probably don't need to, I won't mention it. Never mind. Brightwell looked better than Breida. Moving on into the receiver. All right, receivers. Holy crud. We have so much receiver value. I'm going to start out with the Niners receiving room right now. If we get news that Deebo sits, I do think we could look at Ronnie Bell. He is much more of a Deebo Samuel replacement than he is Brandon Ayuk replacement. And with Juwan Jennings still doubtful as well, he would become the receiver number 2 again. That showdown play for us worked last week on Sunday Night Football. Could work again this week. I just want to touch on that. That's like an if-then statement. And then I just want to scroll down to the 4K range because we are getting so much great value there already. DJ Chark, I already mentioned, great for game stack and opportunity, but could be great alone as well. 11 targets in that game. Now, that was with Andy Dalton at quarterback, so who knows? But he was someone that during the preseason was Bryce Young's I don't want to say go-to target. He favored him a little bit more than Adam Thielen. So it wouldn't be shocking to see that happen this week as well. Ended up having a really big game last week, and definitely makes sense for stacking opportunities in that game. Joshua Palmer, everyone's going to be on him. He's pretty high owned, but he should be heavily involved. He's just a play that we need to be making at 4K and lower. Marvin Mims, you could be looking at. I don't love it. But then we look at some of these very cheap plays that we're getting. We got Westbrook for the Tennessee Titans. Okay, he is going to be playing a lot of snaps with Treylon Burks out in that game, and he has been productive in 2 out of the 3 games considering the price tag. And so if he's going to be getting more snaps in this game, it is an appealing play. And once again, maybe it's more soft coverage in the second half if the Bengals are going to be up in that game, which could end up happening. But at 3.3, he's definitely probably $700 cheaper than he should be, $600 cheaper than he should be with the news that Burks is out. And Ryan Tannehill likes him. It's probably not covered as much because it doesn't need to be covered, but Ryan Tannehill likes him as a receiver. And I want to touch on this. We're not playing him this week, but man, Demario Douglas had like one catch last week, didn't play much again. Juju Smith continued to look bad, continued to look washed. Juju actually playing 72% of the snaps. If they're going to be playing from behind, they might be forced to get Douglas on the field because he's their best catcher. Maybe you could say boring, but I think any Patriots fans saying, get this man on the field. He's in the doghouse after his fumble. I think that's a stupid mentality. We're not playing him, but just don't be surprised if he has a good game. The real easy play, I would say, value-wise, is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't get the price, and he's not getting any love DFS-wise as well, after he kind of did in the showdown slate. And I get it, like the snaps were low for him, and that's why. Last week only playing 21.7% of the snaps, but we see the production there. Played in 21% of the snaps, had 5 targets, 4 receptions, 21 yards. Maybe that snap share doubles, and we know this is probably not gonna happen again, but he kind of got the Kadarius Toney treatment for the Chiefs, where when he's on the field, he's getting touches because he's a dynamic playmaker. And if he gets more playing time, which you kind of think he will, in a game that Seattle could be up in, kind of a sneaky good value play. Like, he is going to get some design plays. They know that. Hate to say, he's their best pass catcher with Barkley out. Waller with those drops was pitiful. And so they like him obviously too. So I really think this is a good sneaky value play. And then tight end wise, the one player I really want to call out is Tanner Hudson. Probably going to play about 40% of the snaps again. Was elevated from the practice squad again. He was kind of a surprise play for me last week. I kind of mentioned him in passing, like don't be surprised if he plays a little bit, but he played a lot. 40% of the snaps, was targeted 4 times, had 5 points, and that's really why you'd be playing him. Is if you're love the rest of your build, you got 2.5 left over, you need to find a value play, he'd be the one I'd be looking at. And I never really touch on a defense, guys, but I will say the Panthers should be, no, never mind, I won't say that. I'm probably just paying down for the Cardinals and hoping that they just don't get blown out, hoping that they don't go negative. Probably what I'm doing. Now, real quickly, we'll just take a quick peek at the ownership. And if you guys noticed, thus far this season, I haven't really been paying too much attention to ownership because it's only week 4. It's starting to matter more and more, but still, I'm not gonna, like, it's not gonna dictate my decision making at all, whether someone's too high owned or too low owned, because I still feel like we can gain an edge by just knowing more than everyone else, by being sharper than everyone else, like we have been through the first 3 weeks. And so the edge that we have just by pretty much following preseason and having the correct takes throughout the season thus far, that edge does get reduced each week as the data gets there, as people start to see more games, as more teams play more primetime games. That stuff's going to happen, but I don't see the big difference there just yet. And looking at the players that are pretty high owned, they're all players that I'm pretty much on. I would say the players I want to call out that we don't need to be on as high owned as they currently are: Javonte Williams, Alexander Madison's a better play at a similar price tag. Jerome Ford, just as good of a play at a similar price tag. Khalil Herbert, I would say, is the exact same play at almost $1,000 cheaper. Like, why risk it if he's going to be chalk? Like, that to me is like the first like fade I feel like we got in the season. Tony Pollard as well. I just don't feel the need to pay up for him in this game. Like, yeah, he's going to play well. He's going to get his touches. Pratt Freiermuth as well. I don't feel the need to eat the chalk on a chalky tight end. Like, it's just no need to do that. But then really from there, all the ownerships that we're getting kind of makes sense. I would say Zach Moss probably should be pretty high owned. Same thing with Madison. We're seeing Kyren at a pretty high ownership. I would say there's no difference between those two plays. And so if you want to make those a little bit higher owned, then and maybe be a little bit less overweight on Kyren, it makes. But for the most part, other than the values I touched on, like, who cares about the ownership other than some of the plays I mentioned. So guys, just real quickly talking about the lineup optimizer on 9to5 Sports, kind of what I'm prioritizing this week. As always, I like to start off with just flex and eligible tight end. I feel like that's just the move we need to be doing. From there, I don't really care. Once again, I'm not worrying about ownership too much, so no need to like max it too much or anything like that. Player group, I do want to do some things here. I want at least, and we'll do really the running backs I want to be on. So I already mentioned Khalil Herbert. I've been getting on more as the week has progressed. Obviously, we're not going crazy with that, but Christian McCaffrey, really like. Kyren Williams, really like. Madison, really like. I think he's probably the strongest price point play that we're getting on this slate. From there, Zach Moss, I think just we're getting a ton of work at such cheap price tags there. And then Jerome Ford, also a very cheap kind of value play that we can be on. I want at least 2 of those in all my builds. So that's going to be a rule that I set. And then receiver wise, let's just do the receivers I want. At least 3 of these, probably. I do warn against that, just calling out, because if you run out maybe your own like team stacks or position stacks here, where you're calling out things that you want to be doing by doing 3. Let's just put it this way. Like, let's say I want to do a Bryce Young, Adam Thielen, DJ Chark stack, or even better, Sam Howell, Jahan Dotson stack, something like that. And those players aren't included when I do this, then it's not going to work. I just want to call it out. So maybe we do at least 2 so that we can still run out some potential stack. Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, we can be on. I'm trying to go with more of what I see as the optimal approach. So we're going to go Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, T. Higgins, I think is at a good price tag. Tutu Atwell, Puka, I do want to be on in some limited fashion. Jamar Chase, I do think he's going to be a strong play for us. And then Adam Thielen, we need to get on him. We need to get on Chark. We need to get on Palmer. Oops, wrong Palmer. We could do some of the other like secondary plays like DJ Moore, plays like that where we're not exactly going out of our way to play, but maybe in a game stack we could toss in here. I like Corn Sutton's price tag. I feel like that's a little bit too cheap. Might toss him in there, just gain some value added. Kendrick Bourne still feels a little bit too cheap as well. Someone you could toss in there. John Dawson, I do think it's going to be a sneaky play. Could toss him in there. Tank Dell, Nico Collins, let's get them in there. It sucks that Everyone figured out Tank Dell so fast. I was hoping I could benefit from it more last week. Hopefully you guys took advantage of that play, and Nico Collins as well. But we have a pretty good idea of like how we're making our builds. And so maybe lastly we do, exactly one these quarterbacks that we want to be on. And so we're paying down at quarterback, remember? Wilson, Stafford, Jimmy G, maybe Justin Herbert, and then Purdy and a little bit of Bryce. So like I said, like you could just do this in a team stack way. Like let's say you want Chargers. I want at least 2 players of the Chargers in all my builds. Like that's the way you could do that. I don't like doing that. It gets a little bit too finagly. I'm going to restrict quarterback or defense against quarterback in this one against the opposing team. And then lastly, we could do max exposure, but let's just run it first to see kind of how it's outputting the builds. And so we go to statistics. We can kind of see the average breakdown of it. We can see the players, CMC, Josh Palmer getting 100%. We could go through by hand and maybe limit the exposures to those said players. And that's kind of the way I like to do it rather than going to settings and doing a max exposure. Just target the players that maybe are pulling in too much ownership, and that way we can go about navigating the lineup builder a little bit better. But good starting point for you guys. That is going to be all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, you know what to do. Get that like and subscribe, and also hit that notification bell. Let's have a good week 4. If you guys want to access any of the tools that you saw available in this video, click the link in the description below. $10 a month. Head over to 9to5sports.com to join. Thanks for watching. Let's have a good day. And as always, let's keep cashing.